Greetings, Better at Chess Nation. This is Terrence B, and today is day 19 of the 30-day chess puzzle challenge. So what I have for you guys today, so we're going to be working on vulnerable king, which means the king is in a position where they can be attacked. We're going to look at mate in 1, mate in 2, we're going to look at some in-game tactics, and we're going to look at back rake checkmates. So the majority of today is about checkmates. Basic checkmates, and just how to attack a king in a vulnerable position that can lead to checkmate. And I think this is important because, again, checkmate can come in a whole bunch of different situations, and as a beginner you might not always know what to look for. So hopefully with this video you'll see what to look for, how to attack the king, or how to look at the position differently, so you know how to move forward. Alright, so let's begin. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll be notified when I release new videos. Alright, let's do this. Alrighty, so opponent just moved the bishop there. So here's what I see. King right here is out in the open, so that's one way to know that the king is very vulnerable. 2, they're stuck in this position right now. I mean, not really stuck, but I mean it's going to take a few moves for them to move out this position. However, if you look and see here, if you move your knight here, not only is it going to put the king in check, this rook is also going to be controlling this whole row. So that means the king will be stuck between, we'll have to move to this square, and that'll be it. They'll essentially be stuck right there where they are. So with the knight coming here, the knight is going to attack this square and control this square. So that means since the king won't be able to move anywhere on this row because of the rook, this is the king's only square. And then from there, you can bring the rook here, which is protected by the knight, and that's checkmate. So you can go there. King has to move to that square. This is checkmate. The king can't take this rook because it's protected by the knight, and the king can't move here because of the knight. The knight, are controlling or protecting these two squares. And obviously the king can't move backwards because the king's pieces are there. Alrighty, let's do another one. Okay, so this is a back rank checkmate, this puzzle. So, and just to get an idea of what to look for with back rank. Back rank is typically your king is going to be, of course, on the last row of the board, of the opposite side of the board. So if you're white, you're going to be in the first rank, in this rank. And if you're black, or if your opponent is black, or playing as black, they might not be black, but if they're playing as black, they're going to be on the 8th rank. So, but either way, your opponent's going to be on the opposite side of the board in the last row of the board. So there's that, and typically there's going to be pieces around the king. In this case, there's 3 pawns around the king, and the king is usually going to be a square away from, how should I say this? It'll usually be a square, at least one square. There'll be one square inside the last piece that's in front of the king. So in this case, this pawn, there's a square right here that the king is not on. They're right here towards the middle. So if the king was in this corner, there would be like 2 squares away. But this is the last piece that is directly protecting right in front of the king, and the king is towards the middle here, and there's this one square space before they would be out in the open. So that's usually how you can usually tell, okay, that's the back rank. Now how to tell weak back rank is, okay, what is behind the, or not what is behind, what is also in the back rank with the king. If there are no pieces in the back rank, that means the back rank could be very weak. And the reason I say it could be because, okay, so right here, there's a queen here, right? So if you were to attack on this file with a rook or another queen or so, this queen is protecting this back rank. So this back rank is vulnerable, but not too vulnerable. However, like in this case, the queen is here, so it put white's king in check. This rook right here came to block it. It has the help of the bishop right here. So there's obviously protection here in the back rank. So now what you need to look for, a combination here to see if you could expose the vulnerabilities of the back rank. So, first, again, we need to look for, okay, what's protecting the back rank. So we know this queen is semi-protecting it, but it's not in the back rank, so it's not really protecting it. Really, what's protecting this back rank is this rook right here. So if we, well, okay, so let me pause. So after we look and see, okay, how can we, what the weaknesses in the back rank might be, then we look for how can we attack that. So we have a rook here that is eyeing down this file, right? This rook would love to be at this square. So that's something you take note of. You take up, okay, where are your pieces at as in relation to where your opponent's king is, and how could you attack your king with the pieces you have. You know, your pieces will either be in a position where they can attack, or they need to get into position. So if they're not in position, you want to get them into position the best way they can. So that might take one move, that might take a few moves. In this case, it's going to take a couple moves. And here's what you would do. So you notice your rook is here, and you know your rook will want to get here. What's stopping your rook from getting there? This bishop. So now you look for a way. Okay, so how do I get this bishop out the way? Now, if you were to just take this bishop, the queen would just take back. And what happens? This rook is still protected. So that's not going to help you. But taking this rook might be an option. And the way we know that is see, okay, well, what happens if you take this rook? Well, if your queen takes this rook right here, the bishop is the only piece protecting that rook, so this bishop would have to take. Once the bishop takes, this file is clear for you to move your rook here to put the king in checkmate. So, yeah, so again, you're just looking around the board and seeing, okay, what can I do to get a checkmate? So, what I think is helping beginners, which is why I make a lot of videos on the mating, is seeing what are the basic checkmates. See, once you recognize the basic checkmates, the next step will be, okay, how can I use my pieces right now to get to that checkmate? So, in this case, we're going to take the rook, the bishop takes back, our rook is free to go here. There's nothing else protecting that square or protecting the back rank. Move here, that's checkmate. Alright, let's go to the next one. Okay, so the queen was here, decided to take a piece here, and what happened is now this queen is getting closer and closer to our king. So the queen is here, this bishop is here that it can take the knight, this pawn will probably take back, or the queen might take back, queen can move here. Either way, it's a lot going on here, right? White is trying to get as many pieces as they can onto the king side, onto your side of the board, not even king side, onto your side of the board. See, I like to separate the board into 4 rows. So like 1, 2, 3, and 4. All these rows belong to the white pieces. 5, 6, 7, and 8 belong to the black pieces. So there's 64 squares on the board, and there's and 32 squares for each side as far as their side of the board. But as soon as you cross that 5th row, whatever that might be, for black, that 5th row is actually the 4th row, but for white, that 5th row is the 5th row, right? But once you pass that 5th row, you're officially on your opponent's side of the board. So white has 2 pieces on your side of the board right now. So that's something you have to look out for, because that's dangerous. Having two pieces on your side of the board is dangerous. Now, what do we need to do? So, with that being said, now we need to realize, okay, we look at what they're doing. We see that they have pieces on their side of the board. They aren't attacking you right now. So, after you realize, okay, they're not attacking you right now, and you kind of figure out, you have to plan for a few things. You have to plan for if they're going to attack you next, and you have to plan for what you can do. Now, you know, how can you attack them? With a check or a checkmate. Now, the second one will supersede the first one if it's your turn. Right? If you have a guaranteed checkmate that no matter what your opponent did next, you're going for that checkmate, and again, it doesn't matter what your opponent does next. So as you play more and work through combinations and play through different checkmates, you'll kind of see, okay, like, I have something to worry about, or I don't really have anything to worry about because I have a checkmate that I'm going to unleash if my opponent does something. So, in this case, here's what I see. I see this bishop here attacking this square, and I see this queen attacking the square. So, I know right off the bat, I can come here with the queen, and the king is in check. Now, the king is going to go this way. So, from there, I have to figure out, okay, how do I put the king in check? if I can. And if I can't put the king in check, well, what can I do? See, once the king moves to this square right here, the king and the queen will be lined up. And once the queen and king are lined up, that means the potential for a pin can happen. And I say potential because, of course, you need to have the piece that can keep the queen, or keep the piece that's going to be pinned to the king in front of you. So in that case, once the king gets here and the queen is here, you can move this rook here, right? And that means this queen can't go anywhere. So since the queen can't go anywhere, the queen, you know, white will have two options. Either take the piece that's pinning the queen, or to move a different piece entirely. So, but either way, the queen is going to get taken. So in that case, more times than not, it'll probably be better for you to just take the piece that's pinning you, because your piece is going to get taken. Why let your opponent get a free piece if you don't have to? It's almost better that you can get another piece off the board instead. So that is what I see. That's one line of attacking I see. I mean, you can do some defensive stuff. You can move this knight here if you wanted to. That'll attack the queen and protect this knight. Yeah, you know, that I would say that's a good move, but again, I think I would say this is a better move. This is a more forceful, assertive, aggressive move there. So we're gonna go with that. So the king moves there, and then okay, and they decide, and our opponent, instead of just taking the rook, they decide to take this pawn right here, putting us in check. But again, we're just gonna move the pawn, further attacking the queen, and then all you do is you just take. It's simple. So yeah, no, that's it. That's all the explanation for that. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here. So white was in check right here. They decided to move here, and now they're also attacking this rook, which is unprotected. White also has this, you know, rook and queen here. So, you know, initially when I first saw this, before I really took in everything on the board, is okay, why not move the queen here to take this rook? But the queen would just take back, and yeah, so you don't want to do that. However, there is a checkmate here that your opponent cannot stop. See, this rook is unprotected. But if you move your queen from here to here, it's doing two things. It's protecting the rook and putting the king in check, where white can't do anything to protect that. So that is going to be our move. So, and this is a back rank checkmate. So I would classify anything as back rank checkmate where your opponent is on the final rank of the board. Alrighty. So okay. So your opponent was in check by this bishop. They decided to move back. So this bishop is eyeing down this. This bishop is eyeing down this file, which means anything on this file will be protected by the bishop. So I see doing this. Putting your queen here, that's going to put the king in check. So from there, once the queen is here, that means this row and that row is under attack. So the king would have to move here. And once they do that, I would think, where would you move? Probably move your knight right here. And moving your knight right there will put the king in check there. And from that point, so once the king is here, these two rows are gone because of the bishop. Putting the knight here will cut off this square and this square. So that's that right there. And then once you move this queen here, the queen cuts off anything behind the king. So yeah, so that's what it will look like. And then of course the king can't go there because the king's own piece is there. So first we start off with that. King moves there, and then we move the knight there. And as you can see, this bishop is protected. This bishop is protecting this knight, and this knight is behind, away from being attacked. But the knight attacks this square while covering this square. The bishop covers this square and this square, and his queen covers this square, and this square. So the king is stuck where it is, and it's under attack, which means this is a checkmate. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, so what just happened here is our opponent moved his knight, putting our king or queen in check twice, or not. Wow. Wow. Okay, let me start over. So our opponent moved the knight to attack the queen. You can't put the queen in check. You can only put the king in check. So now it's being attacked by this queen here and by this knight here. So the king is not under attack. So what do we want to do? We obviously want to get away from this attack. If that's the best move. Sometimes that's not the best move. Sometimes the best move is to attack the king head on if you can. We don't want to do that because that'll take a pawn, and yeah, it's attacking the queen, attacking the bishop, but this bishop is unprotected, which means the bishop would just get taken by the queen. So we don't want to do that. Now what we can do, a move like that we don't want to do right away. I'll say that. So we do want to take this queen. That gets the queen off the board, and you know, the knight can take back, or the king can choose to take back. You know, if let's say the king decides to take back. If the king decides to take back, then doing this move is great because nothing's protecting this pawn now. And now the king is in check here, and this bishop is attacking this rook right here, which he was going to take once the king moves out of check. If the knight takes, then maybe we decide to say, hey, we're just gonna take the knight right there, and then the king will move there. So let's see how they decide to play. Okay, and they decide to take with the knight, so do that. Okay. Oh, and there's somebody else in second consideration. This knight right here that was attacking your queen. Oh, you just come back and take that off the board. Forget that knight, because the knight, you know, your opponent's rook would just take that knight, whereas this knight is still unprotected. Okay, let's do like 2 more here. Okay. Okay, so we have a queen here, rook here, and a bishop here, right? So the queen and rook they're in your territory. They're on your side of the board. This pawn wants to move up on your side of the board next, maybe, or at some point. And this rook is eyeing down this pawn right here to get into, get further in your territory. So white is planning some type of huge attack here, right? The bishop is also eyeing down. So either way, white is planning an attack to, you know, end your chess career right now. But you are also doing the same thing. You have this queen and rook lined up, this nice little queen rook battery, and you're aimed at this pawn. And then you also have this rook here. So, you know, this rook, if you really want to take the pawn, it could. However, when it comes to attacking the king, you want to attack the king with the piece that can put the king in check, if possible. Now, if you don't have a piece that can directly put the king in check, you may be able to take another move, such as if you had like another, you know, if this was a rook instead of a queen, then you might bring the rook down there, your opponent would attack how they can, then you eventually move the rook and put the king in check, then fine, so be it. But, yeah, so more than likely, when you have a chance to attack the king head on, you go for that move. That's the more aggressive move. So, in this case, this is what I see. I see moving the queen here, taking that pawn, putting the king in check. The king is going this way. Now, if you remember what I was saying earlier, you know, to get a back rank checkmate, you know, your king needs to be at least 1 square from the edge of the protection it has. Well, once your queen comes here, the king has no choice but to go this way, which will put it 1 square away from the edge, because now this is the edge, right? So so we look in the back rank. What's in the back rank? This rook. So, and we have these 2 pieces here lined up. So this queen can come down, put the king in check. And white only has 1 defender, which is this rook. So this rook comes over here, takes the queen, and then your rook comes and takes that rook, and that's checkmate. So, queen takes, king moves over further in the back rank, away from the edge. You make sure that your attackers outnumber the defenders in the back rank, which in this case they do. So 1, they're going to take, and you win that battle and win the game. That is a checkmate. Alright, let's do 1 more here. So, okay, this looks, I mean, this looks like a simple mate in 1 here. And the reason being, like, so this bishop is eyeing down that diagonal. So obviously the king can go here or here. And the king also can go on these 3 squares because their pieces are covering them. I do see that you can move this knight here, which is going to put the king in check. And there's no defenders of that. So, there's no defenders. Yeah. So this is gonna be a maiden one. All right, people. So that is day 19. Yeah. So this week we're gonna work a little bit more on checkmates. You know, the mates that I think beginners should know as they, you know, as they're learning the game and trying to get better at the game. And then the final week or so, I'm going to dig a little bit into topics I'm going to discuss in my tactics and strategy series, such as pins, skewers, you know, pawn islands, all that good stuff. That way you guys get a sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about during the series. But until then, yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up right there. Leave a comment. Tell me your thoughts on the video, any ideas you might have, anything you want to see for the channel, anything you liked or didn't like about this video. Let me know in the comment section below. I do read the comments and I will respond back as soon as I see them. What else? If you are new to the channel, subscribe. Become a part of Better at Chess Nation and get more chess content like this. Or you know, you can also leave a comment and request some chess content that you think other chess players such as yourself might like. And that's whether you're a beginner or an experienced player. With that being said, I bid you guys adieu. Take care. I will see you guys in the next one. Later.